Indonesia is a transit country for refugees and asylum seekers. The fourth largest country in the world, Indonesia opens its doors to refugees and allows them to stay here while they wait to get resettled to Australia, the United States, Canada, or other third countries. There are now about 14,000 refugees and asylum seekers in Indonesia. But while life here is safer than back home, most refugees are unable to live a decent life. In Indonesia, refugees are not given the right to education, to health, and are not allowed to work. With nothing to do but wait, refugees spend their waking days in poverty and boredom. With no income, some receive money from their families back home to help them survive. Others must beg for food on a daily basis. Many sleep on the streets. So Ali Reza from Afghanistan, who has been in Jakarta for almost 5 years, is going to show us where he sleeps and where he spends the night. Ali Reza's parents used to send him money to afford a room, but 8 months ago, they were killed by the Taliban. He was homeless for a while. Now he stays in this place he is about to show us, which he shares with 16 other refugee men. So we had to go through a very thin, narrow back alley to get here, which is a two-story, very humble structure. And here, as you can see, this, I can't even measure this, but if my arms were to go, it's just, I could almost reach both sides. And 6 people, 6 full-grown men sleep here every night to try to fit themselves and just to find a place to rest in the evenings. So we're gonna go through the house and we'll see the rest of this place.
1 or 2 people sleeping here.
Okay, so 1 or 2 people here.
This
is your
is
toilet.
Toilet. And another one sleeping up there.
And whose house is this?
Indonesian people help us.
Oh, so this is owned by an Indonesian woman who helps refugees. And you have more people sleeping here. About how many people sleep here?
I think maybe 6
of them.
or 7 people
Okay.
sleeping here.
So 6
and,
downstairs.
Or 1, 2 people sleeping here.
This is more outside. Now what happens when it rains here?
Well, maybe something's happened, but we don't have any choice.
Yeah.
This my condition. I'm forced to be here. Yeah. We don't have any choice. This is my condition. UNHCR don't support us, don't help us, and my process so long time. I'm 4 years here and go to 5.
Their condition is devastating, yet they welcome us and offer us tea. I can tell they are eager to tell their story and to have people listen. Seeing their living conditions, it's easy to understand why the men decide to protest. It's a culmination of their frustrations and desperation.
How do we survive? How do we survive? No job.
So we're here right now in front of the UN Refugee Agency in Jakarta, where 100 protesters, refugees and asylum seekers are here in front of the office. They're trying to speak to a UN official. They want to just send their message across. They want their resettlement accelerated. They said it doesn't need to be a case-by-case basis talk. They want him to come down and see them as a group rather than each of them individually to go up. They want their voices to be heard, and they also want the rest of the world to see and to feel that they have been forgotten. Most of the people in this protest are single men. They come from all over the world: Afghanistan, Sudan, Somalia, Iraq, Iran, and Myanmar, among others. It is their second day protesting. A day earlier, the UN Refugee Agency, or UNHCR, spoke to 3 representatives of the refugees who came upstairs to meet with case officers. But the refugees didn't like what they heard. They were told there was nothing the UNHCR could do, and that it is the decision of third countries as to when they will get resettled. Single men are on the bottom of the wait list for resettlement, and the queue is long. Unaccompanied minors, families with children, and women are prioritized over men. So some of these men have been waiting for half a decade to start a new life. So they return today, demanding to hear from a UN top official. They want to speak to someone as a group.
But what we demand is at least resettle us based on chronological order. There are people who have been here more than 5 years. They cannot sleep, they don't have any appetite to eat. So believe me, this is a bad situation.
Not different between the single and the family. We are all the same. We are all human.
We have to blur their faces as they speak to the camera because they don't want to get in trouble. In Indonesia, refugees have the right to protest, but if they're seen as troublemakers, they worry it may ruin their chances for resettlement, especially because by end of day, the police get involved.
Okay, so we've been here all day in front of the UNHCR office, and at about 4 p.m. things have escalated slightly. The police have come here, as you can see here on my right. You'll see them here, a bigger number, and they have used force to move them physically away from the gates, as these protesters have been blocking the gates, hoping to speak with the UNHCR official. They said to me they don't want the official to leave by car, hence they have been covering the gates. However, this building has other offices, not just the UNHCR, and so the police have had to move them aside. Now, the protesters have been peaceful all day. In fact, they even thank the Indonesian people for welcoming them into their country. They have no problem with the police, they even said. All they want is to speak with the boss, even at least for 5 minutes, just to ask their questions.
It's day 3 of the protests. The refugees are back, and there are more of them today. We spot Veronica Coleman, a refugee lawyer, among the crowd. She came here on her own, worried about the men.
I come here because I feel like I need to tell the refugees, who are some of them are my clients. It's useless to be here. It's just you are exposing yourself in front of the UNHCR. You are exposing yourself to the police and the immigration officers. You are lucky enough that you are not in detention centers right now like your other fellow refugees, and it's just attract attention, and that's not what you want.
On December 31, 2016, Indonesian President Joko Widodo signed a presidential decree outlining how the government should treat refugees and asylum seekers. It is the first legal document from the government that recognizes refugees and asylum seekers as different from illegal immigrants. Indonesia is not a signatory to the United Nations 1951 Convention relating to the status of refugees. The decree details which government institutions are responsible for managing refugees. While it's a step towards the right direction, Veronica says civil society was disappointed because the decree dictates that refugees and asylum seekers should be held in detention centers rather than shelters. As for the UNHCR, the decree says that they are mainly responsible for handling refugees in cooperation with the Indonesian government. Veronica says she feels for UNHCR, which is underfunded and has its hands tied.
Like demonstrations for these past 3 days in front of UNHCR, I think that it will not be helpful at all, because what the protesters demanding is resettlement, while resettlement process, it all depends on the countries of resettlement, not UNHCR. UNHCR can only give recommendation, hey, these are the people who need resettlement.
In the end, no UN official comes down. They also don't give us an interview. Instead, the agency releases a statement. It says they understand the frustrations of the refugees and that what's important is that they are safe. It also says the UNHCR is grateful that the Indonesian government welcomes refugees to its country. The statement reiterates that resettlement is not a refugee's right, and the discretion of resettlement is based on host countries. It also states a sad truth. By end of 2015, there were 65 million people displaced globally due to war and conflict, 21 million of which are refugees. But only less than 1% of refugees worldwide are resettled. Many of the refugees tell us they don't care much about where they go and say they are more than happy to stay in Indonesia, if the government allows them to work. Many of the men speak fluent Indonesian better than English after living here for years. They say as long as they are able to make money to live decent lives and to provide for their families back home, then they are more than happy to stay. But here, refugees are arrested even when they engage in informal work, like selling souvenirs by the side of the road.
Saya nggak boleh kerja. Istri saya sudah tua. Istri saya tua sama saya, dia tua. Dia sebentar lagi 50. Nggak bisa kerja. Nggak punya, dia orang tua meninggal. Yatim dia. Yatim piatu ya. Saya dari mana saya dapat biaya buat makan saya sama anak? Demi Allah saya tidur di jalan, orang dikasih saya sedekah.
So we met with an official from the Ministry of Law and Human Rights to ask whether allowing refugees to work was something the government was considering. Refugee advocates consider this right as one of the most pressing priorities. Agong Samporno is the spokesperson of the Directorate General of Immigration.
We can give protection for this refugee. Okay, we accept them to come here. I mean, some of them already come, and then we give them some protection in term of human right.
Yes.
But talking about giving them work, I think is another thing. I mean our right to to protect our interests
And your people?
for our people, because in the real situation, when we give them protection for the refugee, at the same time we do have social impact from them. How can we give them nice place to stay, but at the same time our people still in some areas still don't have proper house, or even they can even eat 30 times a day.
It doesn't appear as if the plight of refugee men in Indonesia will improve anytime soon. They will continue to wait for an unknown amount of time, for a chance for a good life, crossing their fingers that one day their turn will come. In Indonesia, their days are long and their nights even longer.